The new student. The air was too clean. Jake felt it the moment he stepped into the alien academy. Everything smelled like cold metal and polished glass. The floor didn't even make a sound under his boots. Behind him, two tall alien guards followed, silently. They had long arms, glowing eyes, and weapons that didn't look friendly. "This way, human," one of them said in a flat voice. Jake didn't speak. He just walked. Students were already sitting inside the giant classroom. Rows of curved seats climbed high like a stadium. Creatures of every kind were there. Scaled, furred, feathered. Some had 2 eyes, some had 6. But when Jake walked in, they all did the same thing. They stopped talking. They stared at him. Then they moved, slowly, quietly, away from the seat he was assigned. Jake sat down anyway. The room stayed silent for another 5 seconds before a deep chime echoed. The door closed. The teacher entered, floating slightly above the ground. She was tall, with blue skin and long silver hair. She looked at Jake, and her smile faded. "Welcome to Galactic History 401, she said. "Today we begin with the rise of early alliance leaders." Jake listened. He took notes. But he noticed something strange. Every time the word Earth came up, the teacher skipped over it. When old wars were mentioned, the timeline jumped ahead. Students nodded like everything was normal, like they were used to this. Jake raised his hand. "Yes," the teacher asked, eyes tight. "Why is there no mention of human involvement in the Second Alliance War?" he asked. The room tensed. A girl with silver feathers leaned back as if Jake might explode. A creature with 6 eyes narrowed all of them at him. The teacher stared for a moment, then answered calmly. "Humans played a background role," she said. "Minor support. Not important enough to be included in detail." Jake blinked. "But the old records say..." "Records are unreliable," the teacher snapped. Then she cleared her throat. "Let's move on." Jake didn't ask again, but inside something felt wrong. Very wrong. When class ended, the students left quickly. Some looked at Jake like he was dangerous. One bumped his shoulder hard on the way out. The teacher gathered her things fast, nervous. As she turned, a thin folder slipped from her stack and fell to the floor. Papers scattered everywhere. Jake bent down to help, but when he picked up the first page, he froze. Top secret, for counselor eyes only title, Human War Records, level.
Clearance. Jake's mouth went dry. The paper showed an old black and white photo. Soldiers. Human soldiers.
Standing over a battlefield. Alien flags burned in the background. "Give that to me!" the teacher shouted, snatching the page from his hands. Her hands shook. Her eyes darted to the walls, the door, the cameras. "You weren't supposed to see that," she said in a low voice. "Why not?" Jake asked. "What's in those records?" The teacher didn't answer. She shoved the papers back into the folder and rushed out of the room. Jake stood alone, confused. His chest felt tight. Why would a history class hide war records? Why would humans be erased? He walked out of the room, the 2 guards silently falling in behind him again. That night, Jake sat on his bed, staring at the ceiling of his dorm. Everything was too quiet. His mind kept going back to that photo. The burning flags, the soldiers, the strange fear in the teacher's eyes. Then, a knock at his door. Jake opened it slowly. An alien student stood there, tall, thin, eyes glowing faint green. He didn't say anything. He just handed Jake a thin chip, small, silver, and marked with a symbol Jake didn't recognize. "What's this?" Jake asked. The student whispered, "They erased your place, in history. Maybe you should know why." Then he turned and walked away. Jake stared at the chip. His hand trembled as he closed the door. He didn't know it yet, but what he was about to uncover would change how the galaxy saw humans forever. The banned pages. The chip felt heavier than it should have. Jake sat in the center of his dorm room, holding it between his fingers. It was no bigger than his thumb, but it buzzed with hidden weight. Not the kind you feel in your hand, the kind you feel in your chest. He stared at it for a long time. Outside, the twin moons of the alien world glowed through his window. Soft, Pale light spread across the walls. The academy was quiet, but it didn't feel peaceful. It felt watched. Jake took a deep breath and slid the chip into his portable reader. A small blue light blinked once, then again. Then the screen turned. Black words appeared. Level 9 access override. Forbidden data. Proceed at your own risk, he tapped. Yes. Suddenly, pages of text and images filled the screen. Things he had never seen in any human school, not even the old Earth archives. Photos of humans leading fleets, standing over broken alien armies. News headlines. Human general defeats 4 empires in 6 days. Galactic court bans Earth tech for being too dangerous. Memory suppression order approved. Class 7 decision. Jake's mouth dropped. They weren't just hiding human history. They had rewritten it. Entire wars were missing. Victories replaced with silence. The timeline in school was a lie. Then came the last document. Operation Veil. Approved by Alliance Council. Objective: hide true human past to prevent fear, rebellion, and panic. Status: still active. His heart pounded. This wasn't just about forgotten wars. This was about fear. They feared what humans once were, and maybe what they could become again. He didn't sleep that night. The next day, the class started as usual. Same teacher, same whispering students, same guards at the door. But Jake was not the same. He watched the teacher closely. Every skipped detail, every fast-forward through history. He noticed it all now. The erasure, the control. After class, he waited. He followed the teacher quietly, past the long hallways and floating staircases. She walked quickly, checking behind her twice. She entered a locked office with a glowing door. Jake memorized the code. At night, he returned. Silent, careful, breath held. The door opened with a soft hiss. Inside, the walls were filled with glowing maps, old documents, and digital files stacked neatly on shelves. The room smelled like electric dust and cold air. He tapped into her terminal and inserted the chip. Suddenly, the screen changed. New files opened. Restricted logs. Hidden memories. He saw videos, actual footage from the past. A human soldier stood in the middle of a battlefield, smoke all around him. He wasn't armed. But the alien army facing him dropped their weapons. They fell to their knees. Another clip showed a human scientist holding a strange cube. This, he said, can rewrite time. But we won't use it. We're better than that. The aliens in the room backed away in fear. Jake's hands shook. This wasn't just history. This was power, buried and sealed. A sound made him spin. Someone was at the door. It opened slowly, and a tall alien stood in the shadows. Dark purple armor, face hidden under a hood. He stepped forward. You shouldn't be here, the voice said. Calm, deep, dangerous. Jake didn't move. Who are you? He asked. The figure stepped into the light. It was the school counselor. I'm here to protect them, he said. From the truth. Or from me? Jake asked. The counselor said nothing. He walked to the terminal and tapped it. All files vanished. You've seen too much, he said. You'll be reassigned. What are you so afraid of? Jake demanded. The counselor looked at him, and for the first time, Jake saw it. Fear. Real fear. You don't understand, he said. If your kind remembers who you are, what you once were, it won't just change history. It will burn the future. Maybe it needs to burn, Jake whispered. The counselor froze. Then without a word, he left. The door closed. Jake stood, there alone in the dark room filled with erased stories and stolen truth, but he didn't feel alone anymore. Later that night, someone knocked. Not loud, not urgent, just calm. Jake opened the door and found the same student from before, the one who gave him the chip. Only this time she wasn't alone. 3 more alien students stood behind her. They looked nervous but determined. We want to help, she said. We want to know what they hid from all of us. Why? Jake asked. She answered quietly, because if they lied to you, they lied to us too. Jake stepped back and let them in. The room filled with quiet breathing, blinking screens, and the weight of truth waiting to be told. They didn't know it yet, but tonight, a human and 4 aliens had just started something no academy would be able to stop. Memories not allowed. Jake wasn't sleeping anymore. Every time he closed his eyes, something strange happened. Flashes, pieces, memories he didn't remember making. A planet burning, a city in ruins, alien ships falling from the sky, and always, a human figure standing in the middle of it all, calm, fearless, surrounded by light and ash. Sometimes that figure looked like him. Sometimes it was him. But these weren't dreams. They felt too real. He woke one night drenched in sweat. The room was dark, quiet. The chip still blinked softly on the table beside him. He got up and looked in the mirror. Why do I remember things I never lived? He whispered. The knock came just then, soft, slow, but sharp enough to feel dangerous. Jake opened the door. The counselor stood outside, not smiling, not hiding. Walk with me, he said. Jake followed him through the silent halls of the academy. The walls glowed faintly, showing murals of peace, of unity. But now Jake knew those were lies. They stopped in front of an old steel door. The counselor placed his hand on the lock. A bright light scanned his palm, then opened with a loud hiss. Inside was not another classroom, it was a vault. Huge, cold, silent. Rows of black machines lined the walls, tall, humming softly, pulsing with hidden energy. What is this place? Jake asked. Memory suppression chamber, the counselor replied. For humans. Jake froze. What? You asked why you remember things you never saw, the counselor said. It's because you did see them. Your ancestors did, and their memories are in you. Your kind passes memory through blood. Jake backed away, shaking his head. No. That's impossible. Is it? The counselor whispered. Then why are you seeing things no one ever taught you? He walked to one of the machines and tapped the screen. It lit up. Subject, Jake Carver status. Memory block weakening risk level rising. You were placed under watch from the moment you were born, he said. We knew someone like you would appear, someone whose mind would wake up first. Why? Jake asked. The counselor turned, his voice cold now. Because if humans remember who they were, they'll stop pretending to be what we want them to be. Suddenly, alarms started to blink. Red lights flashed across the vault. Someone's here, the counselor said. The door burst open behind them. It was the alien student Jake had met, along with the others. They looked scared, but ready. We hacked the system, she said quickly. We found the truth. All of it. She held up a data core. It glowed red. It pulsed. This has the original recordings, she said. The true galactic history, the part they erased. The counselor stepped forward. You don't know what you're doing. If that data spreads, chaos will follow. Jake looked at him. Maybe chaos is better than living a lie. Before the counselor could react, Jake took the core. Everything in the vault started shaking. The machines around them flickered. Memory beams began to power up. Old tech designed to erase and control. Run! Jake shouted. They all sprinted, out of the vault as the machines roared to life behind them. They made it to the surface. Outside, the academy grounds were empty. No one knew what just happened below. But the truth was no longer hidden. Jake opened the core. A hologram appeared in the air. It was a human general, speaking in old Earth English. We gave them peace, he said. We shared our strength. They repaid us with silence. So now, we leave our story hidden in blood, in mind, in whispers. One day, it will be remembered. The message ended. Jake looked around at the students with him. They feared this day, he said. And now it's here. No, one spoke. The wind moved softly across the grass. Jake knew the war was not with weapons this time. It was with memory, and it had already begun. The war they erased, the data core burned in Jake's hands, not with heat, but with the weight of everything inside it. It wasn't just a record. It was a wound. A deep scar the galaxy had covered with lies, stories, and silence. Jake and the 4 alien students sat in the empty study hall. The lights were dim, shadows stretched long across the floor. No teachers, no guards, just them, and the truth. "We need help," said the girl with glowing eyes. "Someone who remembers. Someone who lived it." Jake nodded. He remembered what the counselor said. "Your kind passes memory through blood." But what about those who still lived? That night, Jake did something he wasn't supposed to do. He left the academy. The outer districts were dirty, dark, and full of old aliens no one talked about. Ex-soldiers, ex-leaders, forgotten beings with scars on their faces and silence in their hearts. Jake found one sitting alone in a corner stall, sipping something thick and green. His name was Torun. He was one of the last surviving officers from the Great Collapse. Jake approached carefully. "I'm looking for the truth," he said. Torun didn't look up. "Then you're too young to carry it." "Please," Jake said. "I saw what they hid. I saw the wars. I saw what humans did. That made the old alien freeze." Slowly, Torun looked at him. "What did you see?" Jake took a deep breath. "I saw humans fight 5 empires at once and then win. I saw them ask for peace, not power. And I saw the council erase everything." Torun laughed. "It wasn't joy. It was pain." "So the memories are waking again," he said. "I hoped this day would come." He took a long sip, then stood up. "Come with me, human. I'll show you." The war they erased. They went underground, past broken gates, past sensors that no longer worked, into a vault of dust and silence. Old banners hung from the walls, Earth flags, alliance crests, and symbols that Jake had only seen in corrupted files. Torun turned on a projector. The room filled with sound, screams, marching, orders shouted in English and alien tongue. Jake watched humans fight, bleed, and win battles no one ever mentioned. He saw peace offerings made, treaties signed, only to be broken later by the other side. "You offered peace," Torun said. "But the galaxy feared you, not because of your strength, but because you chose not to use it." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. Torun pointed at a video. In it, a human scientist was holding a sphere of glowing blue light. "That was the Nexus bomb," Torun said. "It could end star systems in seconds. But your people dismantled it after building. They said power without mercy is not victory." Jake felt a lump in his throat. Then why erase it all? Torun's voice turned cold. "Because if the galaxy remembered what you really were, no one would accept the Council's control. And no empire survives when the truth is free." Jake felt his heart race. This was bigger than school, bigger than memory. It was about control. He knew what had to be done. The next day, Jake returned to the academy. But this time, he wasn't just a student. He walked straight into the center of the assembly hall, where hundreds of students sat. Teachers looked confused. Guards moved forward, but stopped when they saw what he carried. A data sphere. It lit up the entire room. The recording started. Truth filled the hall. Humans standing in front of alien generals. Humans saving planets that weren't their own. Humans punished for winning too well. Students gasped. Teachers went pale. One student cried out, "We were told humans were weak." Jake stood tall. "They lied to protect your fear. But fear is not truth." A voice cut through the silence. "You've broken every law of this academy," said the headmaster. "You will be removed." But another voice rose. "No," said one of Jake's own teachers. "He reminded us why we're here. To learn, not to forget." Others began to stand. Students of all kinds, scales, wings, fur, stood beside Jake. The headmaster tried to speak again, but no one listened. Jake held up the data core one last time. They erased our past, he said. But I remember it now, and so will you. That night, the council sent a warning. A tribunal was being formed. They were not pleased, but Jake wasn't afraid, because something more powerful than any weapon had been unleashed. Truth, and it was no longer under control. The broken oath. The message from the Galactic Tribunal arrived without sound, just a symbol, an ancient mark, older than most star systems, burned into a black cube and dropped on the Academy gates before dawn. No one touched it. Not the guards, not the teachers, not even the headmaster. They waited, but Jake didn't. He stepped outside while the Academy still slept. The cold bit his fingers. The wind carried whispers from the trees. He bent down and picked up the cube. A warm light pulsed from within. A voice echoed in his mind, cold, old, and without emotion. You will answer for the chaos you've brought. You will explain why the silence was broken. Then it faded by morning. The entire school was awake. Teachers tried to hide the truth, but it was too late. Every student had seen the broadcast Jake shared. Every student had asked the same question. Why did you lie about the humans? And the worst part? None of the staff had answers. Some resigned that day. Others vanished. The rest stayed quiet. But something else happened that no one expected. A teacher came forward. Not a human, not a friend, but someone who once swore never to speak again. Her name was Selena. She was old, even by alien standards. Once she had been a war historian, until the council erased everything she ever taught. She had taken an oath to remain silent, to never speak of human wars again. But when she saw Jake standing alone in the assembly, she broke. She called for him the next night. They met in a hidden chamber beneath the old library. Candlelight flickered across the stone walls. I was there, she said, voice trembling, during the fall of Zarenth, when humans came, when they changed everything. Jake sat quietly. We were losing, she continued. 3 empires had crushed our fleets. We begged for help. No one answered. No one. Except Earth. What did the humans do? Jake asked. Selena looked into the flame. They didn't just fight, they rewrote the meaning of war. She showed him an old memory sphere. Inside it, a young human commander stood before a battlefield. He looked tired, not angry, not proud, just tired. We don't want to rule, the man said. We want to stop bleeding. Yours, ours, all of. He laid down his weapon and the enemy surrendered. Selena wiped her eyes. They called that war, the war that ended before it began. Jake felt the words sink into his chest. But why cover it up? He asked. Selena looked away. Because the council feared love more than they feared blood. They feared the galaxy would love humans and never listen to them again. The next day, the tribunal ship arrived. Black. Silent. Shaped like a dagger in the sky. No one came out. Instead, a message was sent. The human will speak. Alone. They took Jake. No trial. No crowd. Just a dark chamber, cold air, and 13 shadows sitting in judgment. The tribunal watched him without blinking. You disturbed the peace, one said. You awakened buried memories, said another. You disobeyed ancient law, added a third. Jake stood straight. I revealed the truth. The shadows stirred. Truth creates war, the tallest one said. Truth creates freedom, Jake replied. A long silence followed. Then a screen lit up behind him. Videos played, the same ones Jake had shown the school. But something new appeared this time. A message from a long-lost Earth leader. A message buried deep inside the data core. We accept the price of silence, so for now. But when one of our blood remembers, let them speak, and let no law stop them. A signature flashed beneath the message. It belonged to a human who once signed the peace pact with the Galactic Council, and there, in tiny letters below the signature, was a line. Oath of silence ends when truth returns. The shadows froze. Jake had found the clause. The oath was broken. Legally. Completely. And now, unstoppable. The tribunal dismissed him. No punishment. No words. Just silence. But the galaxy heard everything, and the silence shattered that day. The data core was copied and shared in every major world. Children, who grew up fearing humans, now watched videos of humans saving their planets. Teachers who erased chapters now sat in rooms full of students asking, what else did they lie about? And Jake? He didn't stop. He became something no human had been for centuries, a voice the galaxy couldn't ignore. The last lesson 3 days passed after the tribunal. The academy changed overnight. Some teachers left. Others stayed quiet. A few began whispering stories they had once sworn to forget. Students, once fearful of Jake, now followed him in silence. Not with cheers, not with chants, but with something stronger. Hope. Everywhere he went, they asked him questions. Is it true humans never wanted war? Is it true humans saved the Drakari moons? Is it true? We feared you for nothing. Jake didn't have all the answers, but he had one thing no one else did. The last message. The one hidden even deeper than the others. The one the council buried behind 10 firewalls locked inside a prison satellite orbiting a dead star. And now, it was unlocked. That night, Jake returned to the ancient library, where the air always smelled like old stone and secrets. He brought the 4 alien students with him, his friends now, each from a different species, each changed by the truth. He placed the final core into the reader. A message blinked. Level X clearance granted. Only for human bloodline match. The screen lit up. An old man appeared. Tired eyes. Gray hair. Behind him, Earth flags waved gently in the wind. If you are watching this, the man said, then the oath has broken, and our silence is over. Jake leaned closer. This is not just about history. It's about what comes next. The message cut to an image, a map of the galaxy, marked with glowing points. Each point pulsed with blue light. These are the resting places of the lost fleets, the voice continued. The ones who refused to surrender their memories. Jake stared. There were dozens of them. Old human warships, hidden, sleeping, waiting. If they wake up, the voice warned, everything changes. The council knows this. That's why they erased us. Not because we were too dangerous, but because we were too human. The screen faded, and in its place came a signal, a real one. Not a recording. A distress call, in old Earth code. They are waking up. The next morning, space above the academy cracked open like glass. A wormhole burst into existence. Fire spilled. Across the sky, ships came through. Human ships. Old. Damaged. But alive. No one in the academy had ever seen them in person. Not even the teachers. These weren't just machines. They were symbols. Of a past no one wanted to face. Students screamed. Alarms wailed. Guards scrambled to activate defense systems, but the ships didn't attack. They hovered. Then one of them spoke. Not through words, but through emotion. A pulse hit every mind in the city. Fear, regret, then peace. The humans were reaching out, asking one question. Do you remember us? Jake stood on the balcony of the highest tower. He didn't need to answer. His presence said everything. He was the answer. Down below, crowds gathered. Students, teachers, even council envoys. No one spoke. Everyone just stared at the ships hanging, above like ghosts of a forgotten dream. A small pod detached from the laid ship. It floated downward. It landed. And from it, a woman stepped out. Human. Alive. Dressed in old command robes torn from time, but proud. She looked at Jake. He walked down to her. Neither of them spoke. They just stood there, under 2 suns, as the academy watched. And then she whispered just loud, enough for the world to hear. We never left. We only waited. For someone like you. Jake closed his eyes. The last lesson wasn't in a book. It was this moment. He turned to the crowd. They didn't erase us, he said. They only delayed us, and now we return with peace. But behind his words was a warning. Peace would remain, only if truth did. The day history changed, the entire galaxy held its breath, not because of war, not because of a weapon, but because of a single moment, a moment no one expected, a moment they had tried to bury for centuries. A human stood at the center of the galactic academy, alone, unarmed, unshaken. Behind him, the skies burned gold with the light of returning human fleets. Around him, thousands of alien species watched in silence. Some held fear, some held regret, but most held something new. Curiosity. Jake looked at the sky and whispered, "We're not here to fight. We're here to be remembered." He stepped forward. In his hands was a small silver sphere, the last archive. It held the true history of humanity, uncut, unfiltered, undeniable. He placed it on the great platform, the one where only council members had ever spoken before. A blue beam shot into the air, and then the galaxy saw everything: war, peace, sacrifice, mercy, and most of all, choice. They saw the battles. Earth fought not for conquest, but for survival. They saw the peace treaties humans signed even when they had the power to destroy. They saw humans helping species that once tried to wipe them out. And they saw the betrayal. The Council's decision to erase it all. On the far side of the crowd, the head of the Galactic Council stood frozen. His robes flowed in the wind, his eyes wide. He turned to the other leaders beside him. "We were supposed to protect order," he whispered, "not rewrite truth." "Then fix it," said the Drakari elder, "before it's too late." Above them, the human ships stayed still, silent. Not one moved, not one weapon charged. They waited, not for victory, but for a response. And that silence was louder than any war. Back on the ground, Jake raised his voice. "We were erased from history, not because of what we did, but because of what we didn't do. We didn't conquer. We didn't enslave. We chose peace. And peace scared them." He looked directly at the council platform. "So today we ask nothing. Except this. Put us back in your books." The crowd gasped. One of the students stepped forward, a small feathered alien girl who once ran from Jake when he first entered the class. She now stood beside him. "I will write your name," she said softly, "and my children will know." One by one, others followed. Different races, different worlds. They stood beside him. And in that moment, the past was no longer hidden. It was remembered. Hours later, the council met behind closed doors. They argued. They debated. But in the end, they agreed. Not because they were forced, but because truth had found its voice. The next cycle, a new law was passed. The Remembrance Act. It made it illegal to erase or alter any historical truth. And at the center of the new history books stood humanity, not as conquerors, not as monsters, but as survivors, as guardians of choice, as proof that peace could come from power, and not fear. Jake never returned to class. He didn't need to. His face was now in every classroom across 1,000 systems. His name was whispered not in fear, but in thanks, and one line was printed on every academy wall. "The truth may sleep, but it never dies." Far beyond the stars, in a quiet system untouched by war, a monument was built, tall, shining, silent. At its base were carved these words: "Here stood a human, alone, until the galaxy remembered who they really were."